shocking revelation at the altar. Wiley's bombshell exposes the truth at Drew and Willow's wedding. The much-anticipated wedding of Drew Kane Quartermain and Willow Tate took a dramatic and unexpected turn when a shocking revelation from an 8-year-old boy sent shockwaves through Port Charles. What was meant to be a joyful celebration became a battlefield of accusations, emotional turmoil, and unanswered questions when Wiley Corinthos stepped forward with claims that would challenge everything Drew believed about his fiancée and threatened to unravel the entire foundation of their hasty nuptials. The desperate marriage plan. Drew Kane had grown increasingly convinced that Willow Tate was not responsible for shooting him, despite the mounting evidence and legal charges stacked against her. The investigation had pointed in her direction, and the legal system seemed determined to build a case that would send her to prison. Desperate to protect the woman he loved or believed he loved from facing years behind bars, Drew made a calculated decision. He would propose to Willow, binding them together in matrimony. In his mind, marriage would be the shield that could deflect the legal onslaught threatening her freedom. "Marry me, Willow," Drew had insisted, sliding a ring onto her finger. "If we're married, they can't force you to testify against me. Your charges will lose their power. We can protect each other." Willow had reservations about the plan. She understood that marriage built on desperation rather than genuine love was a precarious foundation. Yet she found herself trapped in a situation where few options remained. She worried about her children, Wiley and Amelia, and the possibility of losing custody if she ended up incarcerated. In a moment of fear and resignation, she accepted Drew's proposal, though her heart was filled with doubt about what came next. The wedding day arrives. The wedding proceeded despite whispers of concern from those closest to the bride and groom. Family members and friends had been invited to the ceremony, but the atmosphere was tense. Some guests questioned Willow's decision, wondering if she was truly making a choice born of love or merely submitting to circumstance and fear. Harrison Chase harbored deep concerns about his former flame, believing that Drew had manipulated her into this marriage. Michael Corinthos, Willow's ex-husband, also sensed something was profoundly wrong with the situation, yet he could do little to stop the ceremony from proceeding. As Willow walked down the aisle in her wedding dress, her smile appeared strained. The vows were exchanged, the rings were placed, and the moment of declaration approached. Everything seemed to be progressing toward a conclusion that would legally bind them together until everything changed. The unexpected interruption. Just as the ceremony reached its critical moment, a small voice cut through the solemnity of the occasion. Wiley Corinthos, Drew's young stepson and Willow's biological child, stepped forward from the gathering of guests. The 8-year-old boy's face was serious, his demeanor unusually gray for someone so young. The room fell silent, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. "Wait," Wiley called out, his voice clear and commanding for such a young child. "I have something to say, something important about Mom." The wedding party froze. Drew's expression shifted from anticipation to confusion. Willow's face paled as she realized her son was about to speak, and mothers instinctively know that unexpected words from their children rarely bring good news during a wedding ceremony. A child's testimony. Wiley took a breath, and the words that followed were delivered with a clarity that sent chills through the gathering. "Mom is sick," Wiley said, his young voice carrying an accusation that seemed far too mature for his ears. "She needs help. She needs to see a doctor. She's not okay in her head." The room gasped. This was not what anyone had anticipated. Willow visibly shook, her hand trembling as she reached out toward her son, unsure of what was happening or where these words were coming from. Wiley continued, undeterred by the emotional reactions around him. "I've seen things," he said. "I saw Mom following Daisy, Sasha's baby, Daisy. Mom was watching her. Mom was following her when she wasn't supposed to be. That's not normal. That's not what moms do." Then came the ultimate bombshell, the statement that changed everything about Drew's theory and Willow's legal defense. "Mom shot you, Dad," Wiley said directly to Drew, using a term of reference that indicated his understanding of Drew's role in the family. "Mom shot you. I know because I saw it. I know she did it. And she's sick. She needs to get help, not get married." Shock and disbelief. The wedding venue erupted into chaos. Gasps turned into murmurs. Murmurs escalated into raised voices. The guests exchanged bewildered glances, struggling to process what an 8-year-old had just alleged at his mother's wedding ceremony. Wiley's testimony, delivered with the innocent clarity only a child could provide, directly contradicted everything Drew had believed and had based his entire marriage plan upon. Drew's face went white. He looked from Wiley to Willow, searching her expression for some indication that the child was confused or mistaken. But Willow's reaction, the tears streaming down her face, the way her body seemed to collapse inward, suggested something far more complicated than a simple misunderstanding. "That's not you're confused," Drew stammered, but even he didn't sound convinced by his own words. The foundation of his carefully constructed defense crumbled before his eyes. Willow, overwhelmed by her son's words and the accusations being thrown at her in front of everyone she knew, could barely speak. "Wiley, baby," she began, but couldn't find the words to deny what he had claimed or to explain his allegations. The mental health concern, beyond the accusations about shooting. Wiley's implications about his mother's mental state reverberated through the gathered crowd. The 8-year-old had framed his mother's alleged actions not as those of a criminal mastermind, but as symptoms of someone struggling with untreated mental illness. He described her behavior following Sasha's infant daughter as erratic and concerning, the actions of someone not thinking clearly, not operating from a place of sound judgment. "Mom needs a doctor," Wiley repeated, his young face showing a maturity and concern that broke hearts even as it shattered the wedding ceremony. "Mom needs help. She's sick." The suggestion that Willow was experiencing mental health issues that had manifested in dangerous and obsessive behaviors added a new dimension to the investigation into Drew's shooting, instead of a calculated crime of passion or a deliberate attack. Wiley's words painted a picture of a woman potentially struggling with untreated psychological conditions that could have driven her to commit violent acts without full awareness of her actions. The unraveling of Drew's plans. What had started as a wedding ceremony, a legal maneuver designed to protect Willow from prosecution, had transformed into a nightmare for everyone involved. Drew's grand plan to marry his way out of this problem and to shield Willow from legal consequences now seemed not only futile, but potentially complicit in covering up a far more serious situation involving someone who might desperately need psychiatric help rather than marriage. The guests began to disperse, the festive atmosphere replaced by confusion and concern. Some people checked their phones to call loved ones, eager to spread the news of the shocking turn of events. Others remained frozen in place, attempting to process what they had witnessed. Harrison Chase's expression was unreadable, vindicated in his concerns about Drew, yet deeply worried about what this meant for Willow and her children. Moving forward, as the wedding venue descended into disarray, questions multiplied. Would the authorities now pursue a different angle in their investigation? Would Wiley's testimony be admissible in court, or would his youth and relationship to both the victim and the accused complicate the legal proceedings? Most importantly, would Willow receive the help she allegedly needed, whether as a defendant in a criminal case or as a woman struggling with untreated mental illness? The dramatic interruption at the altar had transformed what was meant to be a protective measure into a revelation that demanded answers. The story of Drew and Willow's wedding, instead of being a triumph of love conquering legal obstacles, had become a cautionary tale about the dangers of desperation, the complexity of mental health issues, and the unpredictable consequences that can unfold when we attempt to manipulate circumstances beyond our control. In Port Charles, where secrets rarely stayed buried and truth had a way of emerging at the most unexpected moments, Wiley's words at the wedding had reset the entire narrative. What came next remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same for any of them. Next, we will learn about the explosive situation brewing between Josslyn Jacks and Jack Brennan that's about to shake Port Charles to its core. The fallout from Vaughn's sudden and forced removal from town is setting the stage for one of the most intense confrontations we've seen in recent months, and the emotional devastation heading Josslyn's way will leave fans absolutely stunned. The dramatic events that unfolded in the November 24th episode sent shockwaves through the WSB operations in Port Charles, revealing just how ruthless and uncompromising Jack Brennan can be when his direct orders are deliberately ignored. Vaughn found himself facing the brutal consequences of his decision to continue pursuing a romantic entanglement with Josslyn Jax behind Brennan's back. And what transpired was nothing short of devastating for the young agent who thought he could outsmart his superior. What made this situation particularly volatile was that Brennan had been meticulously monitoring every single move Vaughn made, tracking his interactions with Joss with the precision of a seasoned intelligence operative. Nothing escaped Brennan's watchful eye, including the secret rendezvous and stolen moments the couple believed were private. The reality was far more sinister. Brennan knew about every text message, every clandestine meeting, every whispered conversation. He had given Vaughn crystal clear instructions to maintain professional distance from Josslyn, yet the young agent chose to defy those explicit orders, believing that his feelings for Joss were worth the risk. The consequences came swift and merciless, in a display of authority that left no room for negotiation or second chances. Brennan orchestrated a scene designed to send an unmistakable message, not just to Vaughn, but to anyone else who might consider challenging his command. Two imposing WSB agents appeared without warning, physically restraining Vaughn and forcibly escorting him from the premises as he struggled against their grip. The humiliation was intentional, the brutality calculated. Vaughn wasn't just being reassigned, he was being yanked out of Port Charles with extreme prejudice, removed from the equation entirely, at least for the foreseeable future. The message was clear: cross Brennan at your own peril. In a revealing interview with Soap Opera Digest, actor Chris McKenna provided fascinating insights into Brennan's mindset during this brutal decision-making process. McKenna explained that his character wasn't acting impulsively or out of anger, but rather executing a carefully considered strategy that had been building for weeks. The actor emphasized that Brennan had actually shown remarkable restraint up until this point, offering the couple numerous warnings and even extending an extraordinary olive branch by granting them an additional day together in Australia, a romantic gesture meant to provide closure and allow them to end things on their own terms with dignity intact. However, despite Brennan's uncharacteristic generosity and multiple opportunities for compliance, Vaughn and Josslyn made the catastrophic choice to continue their forbidden relationship in secret, operating under the naive assumption that they could somehow evade detection or that Brennan's warnings were empty threats. This deliberate insubordination left Brennan with no alternative but to escalate to more draconian measures, demonstrating that his authority isn't subject to negotiation and his directives aren't mere suggestions to be weighed against personal desires. The ripple effects of this decision are going to create massive turbulence in Brennan's already complicated relationship with Josslyn. When she discovers that her superior has literally removed her boyfriend from her life by force, the reaction is going to be explosive and potentially irreversible. McKenna addressed this inevitable confrontation during his interview, stating, regarding how this will impact his relationship with Josslyn, I believe he's had to enforce the rules several times, but it hasn't really worked. I think this time, she might finally understand that you don't cross Brennan. The actor's words carry an ominous weight, suggesting that this incident will serve as a harsh awakening for Josslyn about the true nature of the organization she's working for and the man she reports to. McKenna also acknowledged the inherent hypocrisy in Brennan's position, admitting that his character occasionally operates in moral gray areas and bends rules when it serves his purposes. However, the crucial distinction is one of hierarchy and power. Brennan remains Josslyn's commanding officer, and that power dynamic is about to become painfully apparent. As McKenna pointedly observed, she's going to realize that pretty quickly when her boyfriend is out of the picture. The harsh reality of working within a strict command structure is about to hit Josslyn with devastating force. The mystery surrounding Vaughn's exact whereabouts adds another layer of intrigue and potential danger to this already volatile situation. Several possibilities exist, each more troubling than the last. If Brennan decides to exercise the full extent of his authority with maximum severity, Vaughn could find himself detained in a secure WSB holding facility, essentially imprisoned without any contact with the outside world until Brennan decides otherwise. This isn't outside the realm of possibility, given the strict security protocols and need-to-know basis on which intelligence agencies operate. Alternatively, Vaughn might have been transferred to a remote WASB assignment halfway across the globe, perhaps a dangerous undercover operation in a hostile territory where communication would be impossible and survival uncertain. This would effectively eliminate any possibility of him continuing his romance with Josslyn while also serving the dual purpose of utilizing his skills for agency operations. Or perhaps Brennan has taken an even more calculated approach, reassigning Vaughn to a desk job at WASB headquarters far from Port Charles, ensuring physical separation while keeping him under close surveillance to prevent any attempts at unauthorized contact. Regardless of the specific mechanism employed, Brennan's ultimate objective remains crystal clear. He wants Josslyn's complete and undivided attention focused on her mission responsibilities, not distracted by romantic entanglements and emotional complications. This forced separation serves as a brutal teaching moment, a harsh lesson about the absolute necessity of following Brennan's directives and the severe consequences that follow when those boundaries are crossed. In Brennan's worldview, personal feelings are liabilities, emotional attachments are vulnerabilities, and agents who can't compartmentalize don't survive long in this line of work. When Josslyn inevitably confronts Brennan, demanding answers about Vaughn's sudden disappearance, she's going to encounter a wall of cold professionalism and uncompromising authority. Brennan has no obligation to provide her with detailed explanations or justify his operational decisions. In fact, the most likely scenario involves him delivering a curt, dismissive response that prioritizes mission security over personal concerns. He might simply tell her in no uncertain terms to concentrate on her assigned duties and forget that Vaughn ever existed, a command that will undoubtedly ignite Josslyn's fierce independent streak and sense of justice. The psychological impact on Josslyn cannot be overstated. She's about to experience firsthand the ruthless efficiency of intelligence operations where human connections are expendable and personal happiness is subordinate to organizational objectives. This traumatic event could fundamentally alter her perspective on the WSB, on Brennan, and on her own future within this shadowy world. The idealistic young woman who believed she could balance romance and espionage is about to confront the harsh reality that sometimes those worlds are mutually exclusive. General Hospital spoilers strongly indicate that Josslyn's reaction to the revelation about Vaughn will be nothing short of seismic, potentially triggering a rebellion against Brennan's authority or even a complete reassessment of her commitment to the WSB. The coming episodes promise intense confrontations, emotional devastation, and potentially irreversible changes to the power dynamics in Port Charles. Fans should prepare themselves for some of the most gripping and emotionally charged scenes as Josslyn processes this betrayal and decides how to respond. Next, we will learn about the issue of Nina Reeves' dangerous game that's about to explode in her face, bringing devastating consequences that could reshape Port Charles forever. Nina's calculated betrayal unleashes chaos. The tension in Port Charles has reached a boiling point as Nina Reeves made a catastrophic decision that's sending shockwaves through multiple families. In a moment of desperation, mixed with calculated manipulation, Nina deliberately pointed the finger at Portia Robinson during a private conversation with Sonny Corinthos, suggesting the respected doctor could be linked to the shooting of Drew Kane. This wasn't just casual gossip or innocent speculation. Nina specifically named Portia as a potential suspect, knowing full well the explosive chain reaction this accusation would trigger throughout the tight-knit community. The move reveals Nina's willingness to sacrifice anyone, even close friends, when she feels cornered or threatened. What makes this betrayal particularly venomous is the fact that Nina and Portia have shared a genuine friendship, strengthened by Curtis Ashford's connection to both women. Nina understood exactly what she was doing when she whispered Portia's name to Sonny. She was lighting a fuse that would detonate under someone who trusted her. The calculated nature of this accusation suggests Nina has become increasingly reckless, willing to destroy relationships and reputations to protect herself or advance her own agenda. This single conversation may prove to be Nina's most devastating mistake yet, as the consequences spiral far beyond anything she anticipated. Alexis Davis turns up the heat on investigation. The situation escalated dramatically when Alexis Davis, serving as Willow Tate's defense attorney, seized upon Nina's accusation with the tenacity of a bulldog. Alexis has every motivation to pursue alternative suspects in Drew's shooting, as clearing her client's name remains her top priority. Armed with Nina's tip about Portia, Alexis launched into investigative mode, digging deep into the doctor's whereabouts and activities on the fateful night of the shooting. What she uncovered sent alarm bells ringing throughout the legal and medical communities. Portia Robinson lacks a solid, verifiable alibi for the exact time frame when Drew Cain was shot. This discovery transforms Portia from a passing mention into a legitimate person of interest in the PCPD's investigation. The absence of a concrete alibi places the co-chief of staff of General Hospital in an incredibly precarious position, with law enforcement now circling closer to questioning her directly. Alexis, known for her sharp legal mind and relentless pursuit of the truth, won't let this thread go unraveled. The attorney's investigation threatens to expose secrets that multiple parties have worked desperately to keep buried, and the fallout could be career-ending for one of Port Charles' most respected medical professionals. Ava Jerome becomes the messenger of doom. The plot thickens considerably when Ava Jerome enters the picture as the unlikely bearer of devastating news. Ava occupies a unique position in Port Charles' social circles. She maintains close friendships with both Nina Reeves and Portia Robinson, creating a painful conflict of loyalty. Her bond with Portia runs particularly deep thanks to Trina Robinson, whom Ava has taken under her wing as a beloved protege. Ava's protective instincts toward Trina extend naturally to the young woman's mother, making Ava a fierce defender of the Robinson family. When Ava discovers what Nina has done, throwing Portia directly into the path of a murder investigation, she faces an agonizing decision. Despite her friendship with Nina, Ava's loyalty to Portia and Trina proves stronger, compelling her to warn the doctor about the betrayal. This revelation will arrive like a thunderbolt, shattering Portia's trust and transforming her relationship with Nina from friendship to something far darker. Ava's role as the messenger places her in an uncomfortable middle position, but she'll prioritize protecting Trina's family over maintaining peace with Nina. This choice demonstrates that even in Port Charles' morally complicated landscape, some bonds prove unbreakable. The Isaiah Gannon secret creates a double-edged sword. The complexity of Portia's situation deepens exponentially because of one crucial detail. She does have an alibi for the night of Drew's shooting, but it's an alibi she cannot afford to reveal. Portia spent that evening with Dr. Isaiah Gannon, engaging in an affair that violates multiple professional and personal boundaries. As co-chief of staff at General Hospital, Portia holds a position of tremendous authority and responsibility, making any romantic or sexual relationship with a subordinate surgeon an egregious breach of professional ethics. The hospital board would view such fraternization as grounds for immediate termination, potentially destroying the medical career Portia has spent decades building. The timing of this affair adds another layer of catastrophic complication to an already explosive situation. Portia and Curtis Ashford were technically on a break during her liaison with Isaiah, which might provide some moral wiggle room. Except for one devastating fact. Portia is now pregnant, and Curtis currently believes with absolute certainty that he is the father of this child. If the truth about Portia's affair with Isaiah surfaces during the investigation, the paternity of her unborn baby immediately becomes questionable. Curtis would be shattered by the revelation. Trina would be caught in the crossfire of her parents' disintegrating relationship, and Portia's entire life would implode simultaneously on professional, personal, and family fronts. Yet despite these terrifying potential consequences, Portia faces an even worse alternative: remaining silent about her alibi and potentially becoming the primary suspect in Drew Cain's attempted murder. The excruciating choice between professional disgrace and criminal prosecution represents the kind of impossible dilemma that defines soap opera drama at its finest. Portia must now calculate which revelation would cause less total destruction to her life, knowing that either path leads through a minefield of pain and loss. Portia's fury targets Nina for ultimate revenge. When Portia Robinson finally learns the full truth about Nina's betrayal, that her supposed friend deliberately threw her under the bus to sunny Corinthos, setting off this entire nightmare investigation, the doctor's wrath will be biblical in its intensity. Portia is not a woman who takes betrayal lightly, especially when that betrayal threatens everything she has worked for and everyone she loves. The old saying, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned," takes on new meaning when applied to a brilliant, resourceful physician who now has every motivation to exact revenge on the person who tried to destroy her. Nina Reeves has made a powerful and dangerous new enemy, and she may soon discover that crossing Portia Robinson was one of the worst mistakes of her life. What form will Portia's vengeance take? The possibilities are endless and chilling. Portia possesses medical knowledge, professional connections, and intimate knowledge of Nina's vulnerabilities and secrets. She could expose Nina's past misdeeds, sabotage her relationships, or find ways to make Nina's life in Port Charles utterly miserable. The coming weeks promise explosive confrontations, shocking revelations, and a revenge plot that will keep General Hospital fans glued to their screens. Nina wanted to deflect attention from herself, but instead she's created a formidable adversary who won't rest until justice is served.